I always thought the weirdest thing that could happen in a gated suburb was your Amazon package getting stolen or maybe a rogue teenager toilet papering a mailbox. But nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared me for the moment I found someone else's car parked in my garage. And not just anyone. Karen Lister. The HOA vice president with a smile sharp enough to slice through concrete and the authority complex of a Roman emperor. My name's Jordan Ellis, 31 years old, freelance systems designer, quiet by nature, allergic to drama, until drama kicked in my garage door, reversed a Honda CR-V into my life, and forced me to outwit the most entitled neighbor in the history of community associations. It all started on a Thursday morning. I was sipping coffee in my living room, halfway through debugging a new smart garage controller I'd been developing for a client, when I opened the companion app to test the door's responsiveness. That's when I saw the live feed from my security cam. There, sitting perfectly centered in my two-car garage, was a gray SUV. Dented on one side, license plate caked with mud, and unmistakably not mine. I froze. My first thought was, did I leave the garage open and someone mistook it for a public space? But that idea died the second I saw the figure stepping out of the car on the playback footage, Karen. Dressed in pastel slacks, her ever-present clipboard under one arm, she parked like she had every right in the world. She didn't knock. She didn't leave a note. She just used my space like it was hers. I bolted outside, still in socks. My garage was wide open. The Honda CR-V just sat there, engine off, like it belonged. I didn't even get a chance to shout before I heard it, heels clicking on pavement. Karen emerged from across the street, waving like we were old friends. "Oh good, you're home," she said, breezy as a spring day. I needed a secure place to park for the week. HOA guidelines allow for emergency communal usage of enclosed spaces when visibility is compromised for safety. I blinked. That's not a thing. She smiled like a cat pretending it didn't just kill a bird. It's in the supplemental community guidelines. Page 16, I believe. Fine print. Temporary emergency allocation of resources. Karen, I said, leveling my tone, you can't just park in someone's garage. Oh, it's temporary, she said, waving me off. It's for the betterment of the neighborhood. Your space isn't being used properly anyway, it's just empty. Now, if this had been a one-time thing, maybe I would have sighed, opened the garage, and called it a day. But this wasn't random. Karen had a history of reassigning other people's resources, mailboxes, porch furniture, even a neighbor's lawn decorations. And the kicker? She always twisted HOA rules just enough to make people second-guess themselves. No one ever stood up to her. Until now. I took a deep breath and said, well then, I'll be out of town for a while. So for security, the garage will stay locked. Perfect, she said, completely misunderstanding me. Thanks for being a team player. That night, I activated every single one of my garage's smart features. Infrared camera mode. Double security lock. Biometric backup. And just before dawn, I packed a single bag, booked a 10-day stay at a remote lakeside cabin, and left my home behind. With Karen still inside my garage. What happened next? Well, let's just say I had my phone, I had high-speed internet, and I had front-row seats to a meltdown that would make national news if I bothered to share it. Because Karen? She didn't take confinement well. It was 6:07 a.m. when I watched the live feed light up. Karen was pacing. I had just reached the lakeside cabin in northern Colorado, a quiet A-frame nestled between pines, birds chirping outside, and absolutely no HOA officials within a 100-mile radius. I sipped my coffee on the porch and turned on the feed from my phone. And there she was. Karen. Still in her pale pink blazer, frantically yanking on the garage handle like she was trying to open a treasure chest with sheer indignation. She tried calling me. 12 times in the span of 1 hour. I didn't answer, of course. She also left me messages. This is unlawful detainment. You can't do this. I have rights. I'm going to have your home reassigned. My favorite. "Jordan, you need to understand this isn't personal, it's administrative." But the real show began when she called the police. I watched from a cozy chair near the cabin's fireplace, my phone propped up on a blanket, popcorn in hand. The squad car rolled up just after 9 a.m. I could tell from the badge that it was Officer Taylor. He'd been around before, mostly for noise complaints about Karen herself. He knocked on my front door. Karen popped out of the garage like a jack-in-the-box, hair slightly frazzled, one shoe off, and a printed copy of the HOA guidelines clutched in her hand like a Bible. She began gesturing wildly, pointing at my security camera, and demanding immediate access to public resources currently in hostile custody. Officer Taylor tried to make sense of it. He looked up at the camera, at me, and said, "Sir, are you watching this?" I spoke into the mic. "Yes, officer. That woman broke into my garage at midnight and is now refusing to leave." Karen shrieked. "I didn't break in. I used my community override rights." Officer Taylor sighed the way cops sigh when they realize they've walked into an episode of suburban reality TV. "Ma'am, this isn't community property. This garage belongs to Mr. Ellis. He owns it, maintains it, and controls access. That means you're trespassing." Karen's face twisted. "You don't understand. This is part of the buffer zone clause. Page 23. "No, ma'am," Officer Taylor replied, flipping open a small tablet. "I already checked with the county registrar before arriving. The property boundaries are crystal clear. You're not just trespassing. You're squatting." That was when the full Karen was unleashed. "I demand a community arbitration hearing. I want a senior officer. I'm documenting all of this." She began filming herself. "This is HOA Vice President Karen Lister. I am being illegally confined by a rogue homeowner and a complicit officer who refuses to acknowledge my authority." I muted the mic and laughed so hard I dropped my coffee. The officer gave her the chance to leave. Offered to help her pack her stuff, even call a tow truck. She refused. Said her car had security protocol that made it unsafe to move. What she didn't say, but I saw on my cam footage from the night before, was that she had removed her car's battery. She had planned to stay. She had come with snacks. A pillow. A yoga mat. And a delusional plan to stake her claim like it was a land rush. Officer Taylor shrugged, left her with a warning, and drove off. She wasn't arrested. Yet. But that was day 1. By day 3, things got truly theatrical. She'd set up camp. Moved the driver's seat back and was sleeping in the Honda like it was her kingdom. My security system had a thermal sensor, and I could see the glow of her electric kettle at night. She was living in there. She tried using the emergency release on the garage door, but I had disabled it digitally. The moment she pulled it, my smart system activated the strobe lights and played a recorded message: "This is a secured structure. Please vacate immediately." She screamed. Called me a cyber criminal. Threatened to sue for psychological trauma from technological warfare. Then came the food deliveries. At first, I thought someone had sympathy for her. But nope, it was Karen, using her phone to order food to my address. The delivery drivers were baffled. One leaned into the camera and asked, "Is she supposed to be here?" "No," I said from 150 miles away. "She's about to learn the hard way." On day 5, a second police car came. I watched the conversation. This time, it was 2 officers. Karen had filed a report, claimed I had kidnapped her vehicle. The officers knocked on my door. I spoke through the intercom. She parked illegally. I locked my property. She refuses to leave. They shrugged. "It's private property. Not much we can do." Karen screamed in the background, "This isn't over, Jordan." But here's the thing, by day 6, her resolve started to crack. And on day 7, I dropped the first bombshell. I activated the smart garage speaker and spoke directly to her. "Hi Karen. Hope you're enjoying your stay. I'll be home in 3 days. When I get back, I'll be filing a formal complaint with the city for trespassing, unlawful entry, and misuse of emergency services. Her face dropped. But I wasn't done yet. Because on day 8, Karen tried to break out. Day 8 started with a bang. Literally. I was halfway through my Eggs Benedict and Mountain View latte when the garage feed lit up with a sound like a toolbox hitting concrete. Karen had dropped something heavy, a tire iron, maybe, and was now prying at the seam of the garage door like a cat trying to dig its way through drywall. She wasn't just trying to open it. She was trying to break out. The camera zoomed in automatically. My system's AI was smart enough to detect unusual motion, and I watched her mutter to herself, cheeks flushed with sweat and fury. Her blazer was crumpled, hair matted into a side ponytail that screamed, "I've been living in a Honda for a week." She was talking to herself. Practicing speeches. One line I caught was, "And when the community sees what I've endured, they'll rise against him." Right. She wasn't just trying to escape, she was trying to spin it. Turn herself into a folk hero of suburban justice. I smiled and clicked a button on the app labeled Record All Audio. And then, the alarms went off. Not police alarms. Mine. My system detected tool-based tampering and deployed deterrence, a high-pitched siren that sounded like an opera singer falling down a spiral staircase, paired with flickering floodlights and a pre-recorded voice message. This garage is equipped with anti-tampering protocols. Law enforcement has been notified. Please vacate. Karen screamed. And then, of course, she called 911. Again. This time, the call was routed to Officer Hughes, a rookie who hadn't been briefed on the Karen situation. He arrived at my house around 11:30 a.m. and tapped politely on the garage door. Karen exploded out of the Honda like it was the womb of injustice. She was crying now. Real, streaky, dramatic tears. "She's holding a press conference," I muttered to myself. Officer Hughes opened his notebook and asked for ID. Karen produced a laminated HOA badge. "That's it. I'm vice president of the Summit Pines Homeowners Association," she said, as if that explained anything. "This man locked me in here against my will." Hughes called me. I answered via the intercom. "Officer, I have video of her driving into my garage at 11:38 p.m. without permission. I have footage of her removing her own car battery to manufacture an emergency. She's trespassing." He paused. "You have this on file? Want it emailed to your department?" I saw him sigh. Karen was still going. "This is an unlawful imprisonment, he has no right, he's a menace." Hughes calmly asked, "Ma'am, were you invited to use this garage?" She blinked. "It's community resource. Section 9B. "There's no Section 9B, he said flatly. She stopped talking. He radioed in for confirmation. Meanwhile, Karen made a last-ditch effort to change tactics. "I'm going to faint," she whispered. "I'm dehydrated. My blood sugar is low." She staggered slightly, like an understudy in a low-budget soap opera. But Officer Hughes had clearly seen this trick before. He offered her a granola bar and told her to sit down while he spoke to his supervisor. At this point, I did something bold. I messaged the local neighborhood Facebook group, the same one Karen moderated with the iron fist of a medieval monarch, and posted a simple status. Reminder: parking inside someone else's garage without permission is still trespassing, even if you call yourself vice president. Within minutes, the post was on fire. Neighbors commented. Screenshots flew. Stories surfaced. Turns out, Karen had pulled variations of this stunt before. Using other people's host connections. Ordering landscape crews for homes she didn't own. Appropriating porches for community notices. And now she had finally gone too far. Back at my garage, Officer Hughes made a decision. "Ma'am," he said, voice professional, "you need to vacate this property. Now. If you refuse, we'll have to proceed with legal action." Karen folded her arms. "Fine. But I'm not leaving until he apologizes for emotionally destabilizing me. Hughes stared at her like she'd just spoken Latin backwards. Then he handed her a formal trespass warning. She called it a hate crime against organized neighborhoods. By that afternoon, she was out. The Honda CR-V was towed, at her expense. She left behind a camping chair, 3 empty kombucha bottles, and a laminated schedule labeled HOA Leadership Weekend Retreat. I locked the garage for good. But I wasn't done. I'd recorded everything. Every call. Every attempt to spin a narrative. And I sent it all, not to the police, but to the Summit Pines HOA Oversight Committee. Karen's own organization. Because it turns out, when you abuse your authority to the point of national embarrassment, even they won't save you. You know that satisfying moment in a courtroom drama when the lawyer slams the folder of evidence down on the table and says, "Exhibit A." That was me, 48 hours after I got home. The garage was mine again. Clean. Quiet. Sanitized of Karen's presence. I even burned sage, not because I believe in it, but because it felt poetic. But I hadn't forgotten. Karen might have slinked out with her dignity wrapped in crumpled yoga mats, but she was still vice president of the HOA. Still clutching whatever power she had like a gremlin hoarding shiny rocks. And as I quickly learned, the HOA board wasn't exactly leaping to hold her accountable. I sent them everything. Videos. Audio. Time-stamped footage of her midnight intrusion, her fake documents, her deranged meltdown. I attached statements from the police. A copy of the trespass warning. Heck, I even included a screenshot of her community post calling me an unpredictable man with vendetta tendencies. Their response? We appreciate your concern. The board will review the matter internally. Translation, we're hoping you'll drop it. Wrong answer. I scheduled a hearing. According to the HOA bylaws, yes, I read them, and no, Karen didn't think anyone actually would. Any resident could request a grievance review. So I did. The board scheduled it for the following Thursday night. Karen was there. She didn't look defeated. She looked smug. As if she truly believed she could spin this. The board president, a wiry man named Elliot, opened the meeting with forced politeness. "Mr. Ellis, we understand you had an issue with Vice President Lister's use of your property." "Issue?" "Elliot," I said, keeping my tone calm, "she lived in my garage." He coughed. "Well, I'm sure there are interpretations." "Nope," I said, clicking a remote. Behind me, the wall-mounted TV flickered to life. Security footage. High def. Karen's Honda pulling into my garage at 11:38 p.m. Karen waving at my security cam. Karen climbing into a sleeping bag. Gasps filled the room. Karen's face went pale. But I didn't stop there. I played her monologues. Her fake phone calls to regional HOA command. Her attempt to claim emotional trauma because the door closed too confidently. Then I brought out the best part, her own voice on audio, whispering to a friend. "If he presses charges, I'll just claim it was community outreach gone wrong." Silence. Karen shifted. Crossed her legs. Uncrossed them. Glared at me like she was trying to will me into non-existence. When the video ended, I turned to the board. I want her removed. Not just as vice president. Removed from the board. Period. Elliot squirmed. "This is serious. We'd need to deliberate." "Take your time," I said, passing out printed packets of everything they'd just seen. "But know this, if you try to sweep it under the rug, I'll be sending this footage to every single homeowner in Summit Pines. And then to the city. And then, if I'm feeling bored, to the local news." Karen finally snapped. "You can't do this to me. I am this HOA." I turned. "You were." And then, like in every great moment of karmic closure, an elderly woman in the back row stood up. Mrs. Noreen Davis. Lived here since the 80s. Never liked Karen. She clutched her purse like a judge about to drop a gavel. I motioned for her removal, she said. Elliot, eyes wide, looked around. Slowly, hands started to raise. 6 out of 9 board members voted her out. Karen stood up. Slammed her folder on the table. You're all cowards. I saved this neighborhood. No, said Noreen, voice soft but firm. You tried to rule it. That's not the same. Karen stormed out. The board president looked at me, stunned. So, what do you want to happen next? I smiled. Nothing. This was never about revenge. It was about boundaries. But it wasn't entirely true. Because I did one more thing. I took Karen's laminated badge, the one she dropped during her exit, and mounted it on a small plaque in my garage, right above the camera. It reads, in memory of HOA overreach. May she never return. And every time I park in there, I smile. Because some battles aren't won with shouting. They're won with smart locks, clear evidence, and the patience to let someone dig their own grave.